Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Cinema Recap. Glad to have you guys here. So today we're going to check out that 2018 Chinese comedy film called Hello, Mr. Billionaire. Spoilers ahead. We meet Wang Duyu. He's telling his story to a man who doesn't look like he's really interested in it. He says that he's a goalkeeper, and they only get better with age. According to the man listening to him, he knows more about Wang Duyu than expected. He knows about his biting problem when he played football, that he acted as a female goalkeeper, and that he was even a nude model. Wang doesn't seem like the kind of guy that many people take seriously. He tries to impress the gentleman by demonstrating his skills as a goalkeeper, only to make himself look like a fool again. Albeit at least he's entertaining. The man tells him that he really never had the intention of signing him to his team, but that he called him there for a different purpose. He says to Wang that the day after tomorrow, he'll play for them as their goalkeeper, and that he needs to lose 3 goals, and he'll pay him $250,000. Seems simple enough, and definitely something that Duyu can do. He accomplished exactly what the team owner wanted. He even managed to allow more than 3 goals. His team nor the viewers were very happy with his performance. Wang grows disappointed by everyone calling him a fraud, and wants to redeem himself with his old team. Unfortunately for him, his coach isn't having it. They even hired a dog to replace him as the goalie during practice. Duiyu's friend tries to stand up for him and ends up getting fired as well. Their bad luck continues when a man crossing the street acts as if they hit him so that he could extort money. They decide that picking him up and throwing him into the car makes his story more believable. That's when bystanders come to see, including a young woman riding a scooter who starts filming and advocating for the man. Wang and his friend don't seem to understand how much they could get into trouble and say a few things that cause the situation to end badly for him. That's right, jail. Someone pays for them to get out. It's Mr. Jin from earlier, the man who paid Duiyu to commit fraud. He tells him that he isn't a team owner at all and that he's about to tell him something very surprising. Wang is taken to a large and lavish building where he finds 2 other men named Mr. Yin and Mr. Lai. Mr. Jin tells Duiyu why he's here. He says that Wang is the heir of his granduncle's fortune and plays him the tape of his will. His uncle wishes for him to spend 1 billion won in 1 month.
当然有条件。
In order to inherit all of his 30 billion won fortune. But of course, there are conditions. First, he must spend the money legally in Xihang City, and a month later he can't own any assets. The second condition is that he can't give away the money as a gift or charity, and it must be spent only on himself. Thirdly, he can't hire more than 100 employees, and they need to perform equivalent service. As a fourth rule, he can't purchase and destroy expensive items, or inflate the price of the goods over market value. And the final condition is that Duiyu can't tell anyone about it. His uncle doesn't think that he could do it, so he offers him 10 million won, and he leaves. But if he fails to spend the 1 billion, then he gets nothing. Of course, Duiyu isn't the type of guy to pass on a challenge, so he chooses to accept the rules of his uncle's game. Mr. Jin tells him that he has an accountant that'll be keeping track of his expenses during the 30 days. She's none other than the woman that was filming the accident that landed him and his friend in jail. Her name is Zia Zhu. But Wang isn't fond of her and calls her a blind pig to express how he feels. Next, Mr. Jin and Zia Zhu show Duiyu and his friend the billion won in cash, and it's clearly too much for them to handle. Before Wang could even leave, he already hired his first employee. A few security guards should do just fine.
我支持你没问题，但是保安队长这个事儿。
His next move is to head to an old football stomping ground. Duiyu wants to rent the team and host a game, but first he has to get the field into better shape. He even takes his friends out in his wedding car motorcade, but he's not making a good impression on Zia Zhu. So my man wants to spend his money, treat his friends and himself well. So they head to the nicest hotel in Xihang City and ask to rent it out. They weren't impressed at first, but when they realized how much money he would be willing to pay him for the entire month, it was an offer they couldn't and wouldn't refuse. 20 million won for a month. The hotel puts on a fancy dinner, and everyone stuffs their faces.
就是典型的穷的时间太久了。
That's when Duiyu announces that he's going to start a company that focuses on fulfilling dreams, and that his best friend Qiang Zhuang would be the CEO, who gives an amusing acceptance speech. After Duiyu's new haircut, Zia Zhu tells him that the bidding advertisement for the investment company has been published, plus Hang Tai accepted the invitation for the 10 million won football game he was hoping for. She thinks that he's spending his money too easily, but only because she doesn't know what he's up to. Zia Zhu's boyfriend comes over to pick her up from the hotel, and Duiyu is happy to meet him. Her boyfriend is giving speeches for people to learn how to live without caring so much about money. It doesn't take long for Wang to taint the man's ambitious ideas when he offers to fund him. He learns that her boyfriend enjoys landscaping and offers to pay him for taking care of the hotel grounds for a month. He accepts happily, which clearly upsets Zia, who thought that she was dating someone who didn't care about money. Later, Duoyu attends a meeting for the investment company, and they're looking at stocks. He decides it's best to purchase all stocks that are green.
王总，我没听错吧？
Only a moment later, another financial opportunity presents itself when a man bursts in with a land swimming machine, which everyone around sees that it's a stupid idea, including Duoyu, but he might as well invest in it. Turns out that everyone has a dream, and Duoyu wants to invest in them, no matter how crazy they are. Duoyu decides to take a look around the garden outside, finding Zia's boyfriend had sculpted everything to appear as if it's saying, "Hello, Mr. Wang." His happiness doesn't translate over Zia, who is apparently disgusted by this transformation.
不用避嫌，我们俩彻底分手。
Mr. Yin and Lai are having a round of golf with a woman who tried to seduce Duoyu into doing something illegal. Thankfully, he didn't fall for her tricks because it was a trap to get him to lose the game. The men enjoy indulging in expensive lunches, but Duoyu continues to see through the tricks that his uncle's lawyers continue to use. He's at least nice enough to buy them some cheap noodles to eat. Next, a mysterious man comes from overseas, Mr. Lafitte. He's the founder of the investment world, being worth over 40 million won. Duoyu invites Mr. Lafitte to lunch to pick his brain, only he wants to know about the man's business failures. Mr. Lafitte says he only teaches people to succeed and doesn't want to answer his question. Duoyu asks if he can purchase the man's lunch every day for a month, which seems to make him upset.
I'm sorry, I tried.
He storms out, and Zai is upset with him for being rude. She has a hard time wrapping her mind around his behavior and spending, because she obviously doesn't know what we know. She runs after Mr. Lafitte, but it's too late. Wang decides to catch up with her, and she tells him that she's worked for 5 insurance companies that have all gone bankrupt, earning her the nickname, the Finance Street Black Widow. She says that she came to mainland China because she wanted to find a truly promising company to work for, and didn't want the other bankrupt ones to appear on her resume. Duoyu thinks he's a decent prospect for her resume, but she clearly would disagree. Zai finally tells him that she thinks he's an idiot, which makes her feel much better. That's when he says that she may be a Black Widow to others, but she's the mascot for him, and he doesn't want to lose her. He then shows how much his company needs her by leaving her on the side of the road. Duoyu makes himself comfortable, having everyone do even the most menial task for him, including brushing his teeth or drying himself off. But everyone still loves him. He gets some bad but good news. His stocks were a success, which means he earned money. Another project was a failure, but ended up emerging a success in other ways. Duoyu's team is happy, but his disappointment confuses him. He proceeds to have a meltdown after sending everyone away. Mr. Yin and Mr. Lai enjoy laughing at Duoyu finding success, even while trying to spend his money recklessly. Duoyu pouts in his meeting room, but knows that he must continue with his mission to 30 billion won. Mr. Wang wakes up from a nightmare to find his friend Kang watching him. He wants to introduce an old school buddy nicknamed Genius to him. Of course, Duoyu was happy to employ him the same as everyone else. They even give him a bright idea to celebrate with fireworks. This should be a great way for him to burn through some more money. Meanwhile, as Zia celebrates a lonely birthday by herself, she's interrupted by her ex, who seems to have forgotten that they're not dating anymore. She doesn't take kindly to him talking business and eating her birthday cake after telling her to eat less sugar. Zai goes to tell Duoyu about his friend's spending, but he decides to put on his fanciful fireworks for her instead. The entire city was able to enjoy this spectacular show, even his accountant. The accidental gesture brought a tear to her eye as he sang happy birthday, but she tells him that she doesn't want him to fall for her, as they can't be together. She says he shouldn't waste his time or money on her, and to not put it down the drain.
打水漂。
Everyone around the city seems to know who Zia is overnight, because Duoyu put up posters and billboards around town with her face and hearts on them. She gets upset when people start swarming her for autographs, and calls Duoyu saying that nothing happened and she's dreaming. We all know he's doing it just to spend the money, but Zai is unfortunately stuck in the middle of his little financial game. On her way to work in a taxi, they come up on an intersection where she first met Duoyu and the same man, trying to pull his extortion stunt, making Zai realize that her initial impression of Mr. Wang was wrong. She finds him at the hotel and says that she'd like to go to the concert he invited her to. Turns out the concert was a guy just playing a piano and singing on a stage at the hotel. Zai seems to enjoy herself for once though, and Duoyu starts to see that he likes her once they start to get to know each other. Zaizu's boyfriend is jealous of Duoyu's public displays of affection towards his ex-girlfriend and is quickly bought by Mr. Jin and Mr. Lai. Duoyu's annoyed that the team isn't taking the hangtai game seriously and wants them to train harder. He then gets some bad news from Kang, who purchased some abandoned buildings and managed to make another 1 billion won off of them. This, of course, sets Duoyu's spending back and sends him into another fit. Everyone's surprised by his behavior, but he does have some important epiphany while floating sadly in the pool. We see Wang have an enthusiastic conversation with Mr. Jin, but don't know what they're saying. However, it does seem like it's going over well. Do-Yu decided to put together a press conference, while only in his boxers and a robe, announcing the release of a new insurance policy that he's collaborated on with Mr. Jin's company. He calls it Fat Insurance, where the company will pay 1,000 won per kilo of weight that the holder loses. Mr. Yin and Lai are not happy about this and feel Do-Yu cheated, but Mr. Jin says otherwise. Do-Yu's mission seems like a success as people are busting their butts to lose weight. His friends watch in horror and tears as Do-Yu's fortune disappears. He even wins an award for being the city's excellent youth and philanthropist, yet he says he doesn't want the award because he didn't do anything for charity, but that he does want everyone to support their hangtai game. It seems like that didn't happen when every section but one in the football stadium was red for the hangtai game. But that's when Do-Yu and his guys in yellow make their entrance via helicopter. The ultimate flex. The hangtai team is confident, but Kang is rattling their star player by talking about a role his wife played in a movie. This provokes the man enough to get him ejected from the game.
到后面呗。
Even without their best player, Hangtai's still beating them badly. Do-Yu wants them to try harder, so they hatch a plan during halftime. The plan's a little unorthodox, as they form a circle around Do-Yu who has the ball. Doesn't seem to work that well when their goalkeeper's better than Do-Yu. They even managed to score on him again. While watching the game, Zai sees her ex, whom she confronts about some money he still owes for gardening. He gets all angry, thinking Do-Yu likes her, and tells her the secret about why he's spending all his money. Then he explains he has a plan to return 2,000 won on the last day of the month, so that Do-Yu loses the inheritance. While Zai doesn't side with her ex in his plan, and instead hits him in the face and runs off, saying she's gonna go tell Mr. Jin what he's up to. While Zai's running away from her ex, Do-Yu and his team are trying their hardest to stand against the hangtai. Unfortunately, they're all taking a beating and running out of subs. Even the coach hurt himself walking onto the field. The crowd starts cheering an inspirational "Hold on, Dax Yang," giving them the fight they needed to hold out until the end of the match. All they wanted was to stop that team from winning by double digits. The final shot was barely a miss, Kang blocking it with his crotch after Do-Yu missed still, and the ref called time. Even though they didn't win, they still celebrated. And even the star player had some good sportsmanship at the end. Do-Yu's happiness was short-lived because he received a phone call right after the match was over, saying that he had to bring money to ransom his girlfriend. He immediately assumes that Mr. Jin and Lai are up to it and has them beat up. But they tell him they had nothing to do with any kidnapping and suggest that the ex-boyfriend was the one who did it. He then gets another phone call from someone in a hilarious mask, showing that they have both Zai and her ex held hostage. We find out that Mr. Jin is the one behind the ultimate plan, saying that this was the final test of his uncle before he could obtain the inheritance. He must be willing to sacrifice all the money to save her in order to win. She doesn't think that Do-Yu will come for her, even if he likes her a little bit, but Mr. Jin doesn't feel the same and says that he believes that Do-Yu cares about his friends and family more than being rich. Wang calls and tells Mr. Jin that he'll give him whatever money he wants for Zai, but that he doesn't have it anymore. He proceeds to go on a tangent about needing to save her and not caring about the money, that saving her was more important. He decides it's a good time to get drunk and wallow in disappointment while singing bad karaoke. Zai and Mr. Jin wait for Do-Yu to bring the money, but it appears that his time has run out. Just as they're getting ready to leave, they find him crying in the stairwell with several bags of money in his lap. He sobs and says that he's there to sacrifice more for her, and that if she doesn't have a lot of babies with him, then she has no conscience. Jokingly, of course. Mr. Jin and his team congratulate him for winning the inheritance, and he gets to watch the final video from his great-uncle's second grandfather. He's proud of him for succeeding. Probably not something he's used to hearing. Fast forward to sometime later, when Zai and Do-Yu are married. She's pregnant with their first child, a son. They were going to a meeting to discuss donating all their money to charity.
来，
But before they put that pen to paper, they needed to figure out the expenses for raising a child first. Turns out they should probably keep all that money because kids are really expensive. And that was it. And that wraps it up, guys. Thanks for chilling with us on Hello Mr. Billionaire. Directed by Damo Pang and Fei Yan. Adapted from Brewster's Millions. So what'd you guys think about this little comedy movie? Why don't you let us know in the comment section below with the hashtag Cinema Recap. Thanks for watching. And as always, till next time.